Welcome to a special episode of Third Saturday in October. A little bit of a crossover with the NFL. Chris, you excited?
I'm excited. I mean, your background has me pumped. If you're watching this on YouTube, I love your background. If you're listening to it on the podcast, you need to just click on over to YouTube just at least long enough to see his background. It's pretty impressive.
Right. I got Titans on my left, Vols on my right. There's some rapper who sang about that years ago or something to that.
I was going to say, that sounds like Stuck in the Middle with You.
Hey, I don't mind being stuck in the middle between the Vols and the Titans. Let's go. Be sure to find us on social media at TSIO Pod on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. As Chris said, find us on YouTube so you can see us, see my lovely backgrounds that I come up with every week that really I just find online. Go to thirdsaturday.inoctober.com, get our brand new Tailgating 101 PDF with recipes, easy recipes for your tailgate. Chris, we got a special guest this week. I've known this guy since he was in middle school. You've known him since he was in high school. His name's Dylan Wickliffe. He is an NFL lover, particularly the Tennessee Titans. But so excited to have him on the show this week.
Man, I am pumped. He's been a guy, again, like you're saying, I've known him for about a decade now. We used to sling pizzas together back at a pizza joint here in the local Nashville area in Franklin, Tennessee. Just always been a really sharp guy. But that's one thing that I've always known about him is his love for the NFL just was always been there. And he brings it. We talk about everything from what it's like to be an NFL fan, diehard fan in the midst of SEC country. We talk about him being a season ticket holder and what that looks like this year with COVID and all of that. And we even talk about a lot of SEC players that currently play for the Titans and some other teams around the NFL and what they're looking to do in the 2020 season. So I'm pumped for everybody else to hear it. I had a blast chatting with him. It was like a blast from the past. And so all three of us know each other from different perspectives. And so it was a great way to just hang out for a little while.
I'm excited. Let's dive right into this week's episode of Third Saturday in October. Well, welcome Dylan to Third Saturday in October. Dylan is a fellow podcast enthusiast, Tennessee Titans fan, also a little bit of a Tennessee Vols fan. So, Chris, you're outnumbered today.
A lot of it.
But just want to have him on today because if you didn't know, the NFL is kicking off this weekend.
Tonight.
Yeah, Thursday night, last night, we had our first game. We've got games lined up for this weekend, and the Tennessee Titans played the Denver Broncos on Monday night as well. So all of us in Nashville are really pumped about that. Dylan, welcome to Third Saturday in October.
Heck yeah, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. So, I mean, talk to us about your love of the Titans first and maybe how that kind of ties in with Tennessee too.
Yeah. So I actually was born a Cowboys fan. You know, you can't control how you're born. You don't have much say in that. But when the Oilers, I guess 1998 or so, Oilers moved to Tennessee, Dad led the way in rooting for the home team. So we were converted from Dallas Cowboys fans to Tennessee Oilers fans. And was a messy couple years, if you guys remember those years, just kind of getting used to the new city. We played in Memphis for the first year and played at Vandy for the second year. It was weird. I was so young, though. I was like 5 years old. So I consider myself a lifelong Titans fan. I've been in Nashville since the beginning, since before the Titans were even. So it's been cool kind of just watching the city grow and evolve alongside the team as well. As far as college, I just had to land on something. So I was kind of a late bloomer in terms of like being a college football fan. A lot of friends of mine always had a team they rooted for, and I was like, I just like the Titans. I don't know how – there's too many people, too many teams. I'm kind of confused. Like 25 teams make the playoffs or something. Like there are no playoffs. I had no idea like how it worked.
Right.
So I just ended up kind of forcing myself to pick a team, and it was going to be between the Vols and Vanderbilt. Vandy being the local team, but, man, I don't know how people can get behind. Like I'm a huge – I forget the anchor logo, but I'm a huge Commodores fan. Like, how can I be a Commodore football fan? I couldn't rally behind it.
The VU. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of messed up because one of my best friends played center at Vandy for 4 years. And like, I have some friends from the program, but man, like I just couldn't force myself to be like, yeah, that's my team. So defaulted to the Vols for that reason. But also right around that time when I was trying to like force myself to like a college team as a kid, Peyton Manning was just coming through the program and like favorite player of all time. So hate he was a Colt. That always was hard to swallow, but by far my favorite player. You know, David Denton and Caleb, like huge Peyton fans. So I just kind of followed behind there as well. But yeah, I mean, now it's just like your background right now, man. It's just Vols on Saturdays, Titans on Sundays, and just fantasy football in between.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, I'm also born and raised here in Tennessee. My dad went to University of Tennessee, just grew up watching the games every Saturday, mostly on the radio because we were not near a TV, or back then before we had 400 cable channels and all that, it was either pay-per-view or it wasn't broadcast at all except on the radio. So then when the Titans moved to town, like you, I liked the Cowboys because I had friends from Texas. I liked Green Bay because I thought Brett Favre was pretty awesome. I mean, I liked the Bucks because Mike Allstott. I mean, a big burly white guy as a running back. How can you not like that?
Doesn't come around.
And then the Titans get to town, and it was all those other allegiances are gone.
Yeah, overnight.
Titans fans. Yeah, so I think our stories are very similar in that way. And one thing that I've noticed is, you know, Chris, you probably know how many first rounders Nick Saban has had at Alabama, but Alabama has always churned out great NFL talent. But it's just so interesting how SEC players translate to the NFL. Of course, I'm repping an Eddie George jersey. He went to
Ohio State
University or something like that. But Dylan's wearing a Derrick Henry jersey.
Yeah, boy.
He was a beast at Alabama.
I hated him 5 years ago. I love him 4 years ago.
I loved how Derrick Henry coming to the Titans could be a guy that I have cheered for years, and then to continue to cheer for the Titans. In a similar way, I grew up in Alabama, so we didn't have a pro team, and so I didn't really get into pro sports necessarily, especially like not a local team. We've talked about here on the podcast. I've been a Green Bay fan because Bart Starr played at my dad's high school, went on to play at Alabama, then went on to play at Green Bay. So that's kind of where my allegiance went to. But then I lived in Los Angeles for about 7 years, and I wanted a home team there. I became a Lakers fan out there and a Dodgers fan, even though I grew up a Braves fan. But we didn't have a pro football team out there. So it was nice when I finally landed in Nashville about 13 years ago to finally have a home team to pull for. So I've been a Titans fan ever since we moved here, and especially since, you know, the rushing leader of the NFL is now sitting back there with Derrick Henry. That was just an easy yes for me. So I'm glad to see you repping number 22.
All day, man. I think 11 is going to be the next jersey. Every Christmas I get a new Titans jersey. So
yeah.
Ooh. How many do you have at this point?
It's a awkward journey, but I have guys like Kendall Wright. I have Marcus Mariota. I got Eddie George. I have a couple Eddie Georges, Javon Curse. So this is a fairly new tradition, though. And it's more of like now that I have my own income kind of tradition.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that. Javon Curse, outside linebacker at University of Florida. You got Derrick Henry from Alabama. You said you're getting 11. That's A.J. Brown, correct?
Yep.
Who was an Ole Miss receiver.
Yep.
As a Titans fan, as a lover of the NFL, how do you view players coming out of the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, they're the kind of cream of the crop. They're the first ones that you're looking at usually. There are a lot of exceptions, though. I mean, you look at the top 100. This year I think we don't have an SEC representative in the top, well, I guess 9 and 10, but the first 8 weren't in the SEC.
Yeah.
It's like there's tons of talent spread out. I mean, guys like Jonathan Taylor this year and all the guys from Ohio State, Chase Young. But for the most part, like the SEC is where you start. So you start looking at the SEC. Almost all the SEC schools have a ton of talent. They almost always have the biggest linemen on both sides of the ball too. But yeah, I mean the Titans alone. I mean we probably have 10 or 15 SEC players. I know we have a couple on the practice squad too. So yeah, I think you start there. Then you look at the Big Ten, and then you look at maybe Clemson and FSU for the ACC. But yeah, you start in the SEC to look for pro talent.
Well, I being a fan of the SEC, for the most part, I cheer for the SEC teams during bowl season. During the draft, I love seeing SEC players go just so we can dog the Ohio State fans, the Michigan fans, the USC fans. Yeah. Hey, yeah, y'all may be good in your league, but our whole league is good. So,
yeah, you play Duke and Syracuse every year. Like, come on.
Yeah.
We play Alabama and LSU every year, and it hurts every year.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I've got a deep love for all SEC players for that. I mean, we just got a new player on the Titans that used to play in the SEC, Clowney. Just signed him.
That was a signing this week, right?
This week, yeah. Tuesday, maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
So I want to know your reaction to signing Clowney this week.
Oh, man, that's an awesome question. Yeah, so we were doing a Titans podcast during the offseason that, was the Clowney show. Every episode we mentioned it. You can't not mention it. He's just such a polarizing figure. But for me, if I were GM, I would have think I just hit the jackpot. He's still in peak shape. There are some injuries to kind of be concerned about, I guess, or at least be aware of. But
yeah,
as a GM, there's a lot of reasons why I like the signing. Like one, by far our weakest play as Titans last year was our pass rush, and Clowney's a pass rush monster. But then also, like, the Titans very rarely have a big name like that. We always have these B-plus guys that play like A-minus guys that don't get the coverage. Titans are going to get a lot more just media attention now because we have a polarizing figure like Clowney. So, like, as a GM, I think it's a great business move, let alone as a player. He's a monster. Plus, losing Jarrell Casey.
Yeah.
There's going to be some drama in Denver because they both wear number 99, and Jarrell Casey had some things to say about the Titans letting them go. But, man, I'm pumped. We have a lot of depth. There's a lot of reports or a lot of commentary at least saying Titans have an elite defense this year, which is something we haven't heard in a long time. So, yeah, I couldn't be more excited about the Clowney pickup.
Well, I'm pretty excited, too. Just another SEC player. Throw him on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Dylan, that's an interesting thing you bring up. I've always looked at teams like Ohio State and LSU and the players that they churn out and send to the NFL, and it seems like that teams like that, FSU, Miami, have a higher percentage of those polarizing figures that bring a lot of media attention. And as much as I'm a Crimson Tide fan through and through, it seems that although we often have a lot of players in the NFL, they're not as outspoken as some of those teams that seem to let their players kind of brag on themselves or talk to the media. Do you look at something like that? And like as much as Derrick Henry has been great for the Titans the last couple of years, it doesn't seem like he's one to necessarily step out into the media and take a stand. Whereas some of the other people like Odell Beckham or, Clowney, they are a little bit more ready for the limelight, or at least fine with speaking up. Do you find that somebody like Clowney is going to bring that much higher of a level of media attention than we've had in the past?
I don't know. I don't know how much correlation there is to like the school. I will say, guys coming out of Bama very rarely have any kind of negative PR. Julio Jones, we can have this argument, whoever wants to have it, but best receiver in the NFL, Julio Jones, as far as all-around receiver. And most people couldn't pick out his voice and in the lineup. Like, he never talks. Derrick Henry, in my opinion, the best running back in the NFL right now, that never says a word. But they're both leaders. They both coach their teams well. They're not silent in the locker room, but they never get caught saying something crazy. But then, Odell Beckham Jr., we've got, I just have a list over here, Myles Garrett. So he's at A&M, so they're kind of like an
A&M, yeah.
But I don't know. I would say that I don't know that there's a ton of reports of Clowney being too polarizing, like a negative way. He's louder. and he's just a big personality that I think people are going to watch. So I don't think it's a negative thing he's going to bring. I think he loves Mike Vrabel, and I think that's a chemistry thing that can't really be matched by anybody. He turned down like $5 million more from Cleveland. So, no, I think it'll bring more attention just because his name is Jadeveon Clowney. But I think he's a great fit, man. I think he's going to settle into the team really well. I think he and Vrabel have just an immediate connection from their time in Houston together. And frankly, like, our captains are great. I mean, Ryan Tannehill is so level-headed, down to earth. Kevin Byard's such a good just leader on that defense. And I think Daquan Jones is one of the captains this year, Derrick Henry. So you got a lot of guys who are going to help make sure he doesn't do anything crazy. But I don't think he's prone to that, really. I don't put him in the same category as, like, Myles Garrett or Odell or Vontae.
Gotcha.
Well, you talk about the relationship with Mike Vrabel, just because I fell out of love with the Titans for a few years just because I thought they were making some bad coaching decisions. But then they hire Mike Vrabel, and I was intrigued, loving how he has run the program the last couple of years. When he brings in Clowney with John Robinson, who also kind of follows that Patriot way, I said, okay, if they both want this guy, they must know that he's not going to disrupt the locker room, because I think that's something that the Titans had, especially last year. No big personalities, but that created a very tight locker room that allowed them to then make that run in the playoffs that nobody expected. Yeah. But knowing Vrabel's relationship with Clowney wanting to play for Vrabel again, I said, okay, let's see how this year goes. I mean, I know it's just a one-year deal, but
he's an option to catch him for year 2, though.
Yeah. So I'm more excited for this than I thought I would be when I first heard rumors, at the end of last season.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was just naively optimistic, but I kind of just always knew it was going to end up happening. It just made so much sense. It was such a perfect fit. I knew we had the cap space for it. Really, the only reason I ever thought maybe it won't happen was because the cap space that we have. So John Robinson likes to go into the season at like 10 mil or so. This puts us like between 5 and 7 million in cap space, which is just out of character for John Robinson. So that's how we sign guys like Adam Humphries and some of these free agents that we get in the offseason, right in the beginning of the season and stuff. So the only thing that made me hesitate about it at all was, like, if we get him in for 12 to 15, like, that puts us at 5 to 7 in cap, which is just out of our routine. So, like, that's the only reason why I thought maybe not. But yeah, I mean, him and Vrabel, his best season ever was in Houston under Vrabel. So I knew they were bros. And I think Vrabel he just brought a flavor to Tennessee that everybody needed. He's a player coach with Super Bowl experience. I think he has 3 receptions for 3 touchdowns, all 3 in the Super Bowl, like something crazy like that. So, I mean, he's played with Belichick. He's played with Brady. And frankly, like, the guys just love him. You can just tell. They just love playing with him. And once people just love what they do, like, the rest kind of falls into place. When you love what you do and who you do it with, I think you kind of can't lose with that recipe.
Yeah. Hey, Dylan, speaking of Brady, I know that in the offseason there were some rumors going around that the Titans were a possible landing spot for him before he ended up choosing the Bucs. What was your thought on landing Brady and then having somebody like Tannehill for him to play with or to back up Brady? What were your thoughts there?
Yeah, I thought that was a very real possibility too. I think it was more than rumors. I think at one point, like, there was real estate research happening in Nashville from Brady and his people. Oh, wow. So I think it got that close. But I was always a hard stop on that. I don't want to invest Brady money in a 40-plus-year-old guy. He's the GOAT. He is the best. I hate saying it out loud, but he's the best of all time. I'm stoked to see what he does in Tampa. I'm stoked to see the Patriots without him. But, like, how do you say no to Tannehill after last year? A.J. Brown said it really well in one of his podcasts or one of his interviews or something. But A.J. Brown said, like, I mean, Tom Brady's the GOAT, obviously. But, like, how do you say no to Ryan Tannehill after that year? So you take us an AFC championship, you lead the league in QBR, and just such a huge morale boost. And frankly, like, Ryan Tannehill's not that cheap right now either, so I don't want to pay 2 quarterbacks starter money. And frankly, like, I think Ryan Tannehill's like 31, 32, somewhere in there, so realistically has 10 or so years left for a quarterback. Brady's on his last, I'll say 5 because he's Brady, but Brady's toward the end of his career. And man, I don't know. That's such a huge culture shift bringing on Tom Brady that I don't want to mess up what we got already.
Well, sure. And it's a choice between the GOAT, the greatest of all time, and maybe the goalie, greatest of last year.
Yeah.
So it's man, I don't know. Tannehill's got this momentum. Let's keep rolling with it. He's got the chemistry already, which is a big thing. And
he didn't start till week 7.
Yeah.
He played barely half the season, and he tore it up. He's such a good fit for the team.
Well, and combine that with A.J. Brown didn't get rolling as a rookie until halfway through his rookie season.
Yep.
So he's going into year 2 now with this chemistry with Tannehill. I've got my fingers crossed that it's something like LSU did last year where, hey, let's score a lot of points. I know it's not going to be that high scoring kind of offense that LSU had, but I love seeing the Titans throw it around a little more.
Yeah.
Having been, in the early 2000s, a run-heavy team with the likes of Eddie George and Lorenzo Neal in the backfield just pounding away.
Yeah, I don't want to abandon the run. Derrick Henry's proven himself too. We have a lot to prove on that O-line this year for sure. But for me, I want to be a pass-first team still. But on defense, you kind of have 2 options. You put 8 in the box and maybe hopefully try to stop Henry, or you put more DBs out there and Khalif Raymond outruns you. A.J. Brown runs better routes than you. Corey Davis is on a contract year. So, I don't know. I think you have an option of you better keep an eye on Henry, but we don't have Mariota back there anymore. We have somebody who can chuck that ball too. So
yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm excited about the Titans this year.
I'm so hyped. Yeah.
Well, knowing how they finished in the AFC last year, second, they lost that. It seemed like they were a long shot because I think what did they end up? Maybe 4th? Say that again?
We were the 6th seed in the playoffs, or the 5th seed before the Bills. So 9-7, barely scraped. It was a win and we're in situation against the Texans in 17. Without
it's such a storied way to end that season, such a fun playoff run for the Titans. Do you see the potential with how the landscape has changed since last season and with COVID do we have the potential to make it as far as we did in 2019, or do you see us taking a step back? What are your thoughts leading into the 2020 season?
Raw statistics say you don't repeat yourself 2 years in a row. So, statistically, I think it's hard to make it the same as last year or further. But it's been done so many times in the past as well, too. So I think all the pieces are there. We have all the players we need. We have all the coaches we need. There's a lot of unknowns with the COVID pandemic and everything and how the season's going to play out, how fans do and do not impact the game. I think we like to think we play a bigger role than we really do. But still, there's a lot of variables. I think we have all the pieces. I think, especially with Clowney now, I think the defense and the offense are both real contenders. But also, you have some ridiculous talent in the AFC. Lamar Jackson has said the word Super Bowl in every single interview since he won the MVP. You got Patrick Mahomes, who is probably on a path to be the best or at least most talented quarterback of all time with just an absolute juggernaut offense and an improving defense. And they didn't lose any players. You got the Steelers. Big Ben's back. Big Ben's going to want to prove himself. You can't write off Bill Belichick and the Patriots. I don't care what you think. I don't care what anybody thinks. That Bill Belichick is the GOAT, and Cam Newton has enough talent to make Bill Belichick continue to look good. So I don't know, man. There's so much talent in the AFC. I'm definitely glad we're not in the NFC. There's even more talent there. But, as far as the AFC goes, I think Titans have a good chance as anybody to at least duke it out with Lamar and Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see how Brady does in Tampa without Belichick. I want to see how Belichick does in New England without Brady, because that's been my biggest question is how are they without each other? But there are a lot of cool storylines this year in the NFL. Dylan, I want to ask you why do you gravitate towards the NFL now? Now that you've been exposed to the NFL, you've been exposed to the SEC. What is it that you like more about the NFL from college football?
Man, I do love college football. I love watching the Vols. I never miss a game. But yeah, I'm definitely in the minority, I feel like, with my group of friends and just people who prefers the NFL. I definitely think I'm in the minority there. I think a lot of people are turned off by the extra like commentary you get, whether you call it political or social or whatever. For me, like those things are important, but for me, most importantly, like I'm watching the best football players in the world play a sport that I just love. I get to kind of over-romanticize the situation like I'm a part of it, like the Titans are thankful for all my contributions or something. But no, I love being a part of it, man. I love being involved. I love playing Madden. I think for me, it's just so easy to follow. So there's not like there's 4 divisions and 2 conferences. Every division rival makes the playoffs, or every division winner makes the playoffs, and then 3 wildcard slots. It's just such like a easy formula to follow, whereas there are hundreds of colleges just in the FBS alone, let alone FCS schools that sometimes trickle in. So I think for me, it's just a lot easier to follow, a lot less players to have to remember. Plus, every year your roster changes so dramatically in college. So like for me, it was very hard going from Josh Dobbs and really competing for, the SEC East the SEC East when Dobbs leaves and then Butch Jones gets fired. And it's like we have a whole new squad now. Jawan Jennings gets kicked off the team. Now he's back. That kind of stuff is hard to follow. And frankly, like, especially as a Tennessee fan, it's such a bipolar thing to follow. Like you go from Peyton Manning to T. Martin to God knows who until Josh Dobbs all of a sudden. And then you go to like Jared Garantano, and I'm like, this guy is not it, but he's still starting. And I'm just like, that kind of stuff's just kind of frustrating for me. It's like teams have a lot less off-season moves they can make, so it's all recruiting. It's not like, oh, I'm going to trade for Jalen Hurts. He's not starting anymore. Let's see if Saban can work a deal. Like it's just not how it works. Yeah. So I don't know. And plus, like I think it's as simple as like the best players in all of the SEC and all of college go to the NFL, and I get to watch them duke it out. Plus, guys that I hate in college, Derrick Henry, I get to love in the NFL because he's on my team. So, I don't know. There's a lot of pieces. I think how it started was with fantasy football, though. Because in fantasy football, you're just forced to learn so many different players. Like, you can't just draft all the Titans. You'll first of all, you'll lose. And second of all, like, there's not a whole team worth of Titans worth drafting. So, I don't know. There's a lot to it, but I've always just gravitated toward the NFL, even before I was, like, a real football fan.
Yeah.
Dylan, I can remember, this is going back almost a decade or maybe more than a decade at this point, being impressed with your knowledge around football and NFL in general. Remember, I can't believe it's been this long, but in 2010, you and I worked at a pizza place together. And you were one of the best pizza throwers I've ever seen. I never could get that technique down, but you
have a lot of hobbies. Or friends.
But I can remember sitting in that pizza joint one day watching, I think it was Super Bowl 44 with Colts versus the Saints. And I believe you were pulling for the Colts that day because of Manning. And I was actually pulling for the Saints because a guy that I grew up with, Roman Harper, was playing defensive back for the Saints at that time from the same hometown. And so, but to just hear your ability to break down the little nuances of NFL play for that period of time was just great. So I've been impressed with you for over a decade, and now to know that you're still bringing the stats and you're bringing the information and putting it out there. I really appreciate you being a voice for the NFL for folks like me that need to know it even more.
Yeah, man, I definitely. I obsess over that kind of stuff, and I don't have a ton of people to talk about it with. So like my wife ends up hearing a lot about it, and like now it's to the point where I just joke around. Like when we signed Clowney, I screamed, like, got happy, and she's like, what's wrong? Who do I need to call? I'm like, no, Clowney's a Titan. We were at church. And she's like, okay. I was like, and I'll joke around, like, I'll ask my wife, like, hey, Carly, so Jadeveon Clowney, he's a Titan. How do you feel about that? And she'll say, I think he'll be very good. He'll get lots of touchdowns, and they will be good. And I just love it, like, asking her opinion on stuff that she just has no idea about. I asked her if I should draft Bishop Sankey or Keyshawn Johnson first this year. So that's just kind of the relationship that we have. But, yeah, I mean, I obsess over little things. Like, I watch it a lot. And, again, this is one of those things where, like, I contribute to the Titans, and they're so thankful for my service. But I watch, like, a lot of film. Like, I watch anything on YouTube where there's people breaking down small things. Like, the NFL has a series where they'll bring out, like, superstar players and have them, like, break down their film. I watch every episode. It's amazing.
Nice.
But, yeah, I've always been nerdy. You know that.
Well, we love it. It's awesome. do want to talk about your new season ticket holder.
Yeah.
What does that look like for this season? Because it's not going the Nissan Stadium's not going to be full capacity this year. So you as a new ticket holder, what are your options?
Yep. So we had a whole plan. So they did a really good job of communicating what the plan was for it. And they're obviously trying their best to navigate all this stuff for the first time. So tons of grace extended to them. But, so the home opener versus Jacksonville, they've already confirmed it's going to have no fans. So that's one of the 8 home games that are going to be 0 in attendance. But from there, it's going to be a play-it-by-ear thing. The mayor has a pretty big say in what does and does not happen, too. So we got to just see how the numbers pan out, how the curve happens to flatten or not. But, assuming that fans are allowed, like you said, it won't be full capacity. The plan is going to be for season ticket holders to be sent this private link, this like a login where you can log into this ticket purchasing platform. And only season ticket holders will be able to purchase tickets. So we won't be guaranteed our seats. So, we won't be sitting in our seats. We'll be spread out. But, I think the Chiefs are going to have, 14,000 to 16,000 people still, which keeps them compliant with social distancing guidelines. Now, that's the last I heard. That could have changed. I mean, that game's tonight. Or I guess by the time this goes out, maybe yesterday or something. But so I guess every team is still kind of having their own plays on how they're handling it. So if the Chiefs are having that many people in, I think they're going to determine how a lot of the season goes. So hopefully that goes well. Hopefully there's no spike in cases because I'm hoping to be at Nissan Stadium 7 or more times this year.
Sweet.
Yeah, that would be so awesome. Yeah. We've got a segment here called PreGame where we talk about how we watch the games every weekend. So I want to talk about that in just a second. But first, we got to roll out this season's first playing of our pregame music. So, Chris, hit that pregame music.
Tailgate, man cave, living room, pregame, burgers, ribs, chicken wings, chip and dip, pregame, scotch and a lot of IPA, Coca-Cola, pregame, slaying dogs, PA, cornhole, pregame. How you gonna watch?
So, I'm so pumped to be watching football this weekend. Dylan, we'll start with you. How are you going to watch Monday night the Titans take on Denver?
Well, it was always going to be an away game, so it was not going to be in person. I guess I got it just depends. It's going to be a late game. I think it's like an 8:20 kickoff, so I got to see my son will be in bed, so I won't be able to be too loud, so that's going to be tough.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, man, brutal. Almost always I watch the games either with my dad or with my friend from Vandy I told you about. His name is Joe. So depending on kind of their schedules, I'll either go to my dad's house or we'll go to Buffalo Wild Wings or something or go to Joe's house, go to our new house. So, home games I'm hoping are at Nissan Stadium for the majority of this year. But if not, we'll always grab food and kick it in one of our 3 living rooms, mine, Joe's, or my dad's.
So if you're at your dad's or Joe's, do you have a certain dish that has to be there, or do you change it up every week? Do you have a certain tailgate food that you have to have?
Man, I gotta stay hydrated. That's all it is. I'm not too partial to game day food. I just get really invested in the game, and I'm so nerdy. I'm gonna be watching Isaiah Wilson. I'm gonna be watching our right tackle's footwork. I kind of dork out over the game where I kind of don't eat a lot. But my go-tos are pizza and wings. I know it's not exciting to talk about, but I love wings. But yeah, basically first plate, and then I'm just watching the game. I love staying hydrated with whatever we hydrate ourselves with.
Yeah, well,
that's smart.
Yeah.
In order to contribute, you got to stay hydrated. You don't want to be cramping in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
It's not going to help the Titans if you're over there. Oh,
I know, man. I gotta get my pre-workout in, my protein shakes, and gotta help Rashawn Evans in the red zone.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to try to watch like you. I've got a young son who will probably be going down to bed about time kickoff. So Yeah, it's last year I had to master the silent screen.
Yeah, I'm not good at that one. So
we'll have to see how that goes. It may be just me watching it on my iPad, maybe outside, still in Wi-Fi range of the house.
Yeah.
The late game. I mean, it's going to be ending close to midnight. That's not going to be fun, but we'll make it worth it. Chris, you going to be watching the Titans on Monday night?
Yeah, I definitely am. And to echo what you two were talking about, my family have a tradition. It happened with my father to me, and then me with my son and daughter. But we have a tradition of making the little ones cry because we cheer too loud for our team. And so, yeah, I've been told by my dad that I used to cry when he would get too excited when Alabama lost or when they kicked a winning field goal or something like that. And it's definitely happened for me too. When they were little, again, I've made them cry on accident and then had to do the whole thing, like, comfort them and make them feel better. So I think that's just maybe a tradition that football fans have to pass on to their children to show them what really matters in their dad's lives by cheering so loudly. But you know what I'm going to do in honor of Dylan being on the show and the Tennessee Titans playing Monday night. That's going to be my first night that I'm actually going to pregame. I'm going to, like what Dylan said, I'm going to get ready. I'm going to get the wings cooked up. I'm going to make that special dip, and have my son and I sit down and watch Monday Night Football with the Titans there. That's how I'm going to kick off the season. And NFL or watching SEC football is next Monday night watching the Titans play.
Yep, I put a jersey on every game day, so I nerd out.
Sweet.
Side note, there's a ton of SEC representation on Monday too, so you guys need to chat about that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, Dylan, we'll have to have you back for kind of an SEC recap for the NFL on a regular basis, because I love this. I love this conversation that we're having.
Amen.
And Chris, pictures or it doesn't happen. I want to see pictures of these wings from Monday night.
Done.
So
you got it.
Maybe a selfie with just wing sauce all over.
Just all over the mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. If it gets in your locks, I'll love you even more. But I'm excited, guys. Football's here.
Let's go.
It's happening. Even if it just happens, maybe we play this Thursday night game and then everything shuts down. Who knows?
Whole season.
We get football. I know we got some college football the last couple of weeks. I haven't been paying attention because I don't even know these schools.
Basically,
there's been some blowouts, but football nonetheless. So I've been trying to watch as much as possible.
Yeah. So as we like to say here, well, I can't sign off without saying make sure you follow us on social media at TSIOPod on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find video recordings of all our episodes this season on YouTube, so find us there. We have a Tailgate 101 that you can get now. We'll be mailing it out this weekend. Couple recipes and just tips for tailgating. Get that over at thirdsaturdayiNoctober.com. I think I've hit everything, which means now it's time for me to say, and Dylan, you're welcome to join us as well.
No, I'm not. I'm going to say tighten up.
You can say that too. I'm going to say roll Vols. Dylan?
I'm going to say tighten up. I'm not comfortable
yet.
Oh, roll Vols, baby.
We'll see y'all next week.
All right, guys. Thanks.